There's a lot of things about Philly back in the day. It was a pretty strict crew. Like, there was rules. Like, and these guys enforced the rules.
Mm-hmm.
It was, no negatives in Philly. We've been through that.
Yep. Was that you?
Jimmy. Jimmy, for sure. No negatives in Philly. And
I said that to you, right?
to me. Yeah.
Was that your first trip to Philly?
My first trip to Philly. Yeah.
He's like, okay,
First
good.
trip to Philly,
Well,
yeah.
good.
I did like a negative star grind, right? Porn star grind on Black Solomon's at I think it was UPenn.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, no negatives in Philly. And the murder went up and did like a negative mistrial. Why do we do negatives? We do whatever we want. But they were like, grab the tricks and stay fakey. So I'm curious to not only know about the rules, but like I was also saying before, there was a really strong distinction. Like I think this goes along with the rules that street skating, there was a separation back in the day. People didn't really do both as fluently as there are today. Like, I think it's most people who can skate street or skating park and are able to, but back then it was like street skaters, X Games, contest skaters, and it was like the street skaters were always like the core guys, and like, that's whack, dude. That's,
100%.
That's
whack.
Yeah.
We hated on anything park related possible.
Right.
So Brian Lux, we met through Cheapskates, and just by the mere fact that we met him through Cheapskates, we still refer to Lux as a park rat to this day. But to talk about some of the Philly rules that came about, because when it it happened over time, and it didn't happen intentionally. We weren't creating the Philly rules because Philly was all we knew. We were just these were the rules.
What you live by, yeah.
They're good rules. I like the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also like breaking the rules too.
Right. Well, yeah. So I think that's a great point. But so, like you said, it was largely Jeff and I and some of the guys who we originally were skating with, where we came up with these set of rules, and Jeff and myself, and we're two very different people. Jeff can be very loud and boisterous, and but I think the things that we have,
love Jeff. Shout out Jeff.
Love the kid. He was the best man in my wedding.
Nice.
You're gonna have to share some Jeff stories with
he's
us
out there Muay Thai fighting now. I saw he beat somebody's ass.
What?
Yeah, and he's out there fighting in like a in a ring. Yeah.
Very impressed with the roundhouse kick that he did. But I'm
just saying, don't say the wrong thing to him. That's all I'm gonna say.
I like to point out that guy had a pretty flappy midsection that he beat. But
a flappy.
I didn't say it. I saw the roundhouse. I don't want a piece of it.
I don't want a piece of it either. I told him specifically that I would never want that to happen to me.
Nice.
But I think the things that Jeff and I have in common are the fact that we're perfectionists in what we do, and we value that, and we strive for that. So when we originally came up with the ideas of having to grab your tricks, having to, land fakie or spin out, not doing negative tricks. It's one, we saw it as that's the way that it should be done. That's the way that it looks good. And that's the way that we like doing it. But also at the time, the people who weren't doing it that way were not making it look good. There was not negative tricks that looked good. There was, if people weren't grabbing backslides, it was because they were going to die doing a backslide and couldn't get their leg up to grab it. So
that is true. There was a time where you grabbed every trick.
Yeah.
Freestyle wasn't a trend yet, Mind game didn't come out yet.
Not even that, but like he said, if you're seeing it like that, it's just maybe a little bit more out of control because during that time it was a bit more. It wasn't like now where the people who were doing the no grab backslides they can grab it, but I think then it was like it couldn't do the thing because it was such an early stage.
Yeah.
And so it's like, this is the way. This is how you do it. So maybe different time.
So at the time, we viewed that as the only way, and we were vocal about it, as you know. and but we believed that was the right way to do things, and I think those rules and those standards that were set at that time, you can still see that through like generations that grew up in Philly.
You totally can see all that through like the Kelsos and Anthony.
Through the Kelsos, I was
Yeah.
gonna say even Anthony, as wild as he can skate, sometimes you can still
Everything's
see
proper.
that in him. Like watch him do a topsoul,
Yeah.
and like that's how you're supposed to do a
The
topsoul.
little things done so well.
It makes all the difference.
All the difference.
So
Philly was good at the like really having an eye for those nuanced things. I think it was a little tough, but also skating back in that time was pretty. The older guys in New York weren't as like welcoming, like, oh, come skate.
I was gonna say the same thing too. That was
Yeah.
just like a thing in the '90s. I think everyone was just hard on each other.
It was just hard.
Yeah.
Harder. Yeah. And I love that skating is really accepting now. And we see a blader from like a mile away and we're like, hey, dude, come over here and skate with us.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that back in the day. And there was crews trying to like, make distinctions between other and like, no, we do it like this. And so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
If you keep putting it in context,
Yeah, of course.
But I think like you said, those nuances are what it's all about for
Right.
me.
Me too.
I live off that stuff.
I love seeing those things in skating.
To me, it reminds me of graffiti artists. So, our culture of rollerblading has become small at this point comparatively to some of the other action sports or whatever you want to call them at this time.
No.
But so,
What world you live in?
but so, a really good graffiti artist who does a tag on the wall, not who does a mural, someone who does a tag on the wall. Most people can't read what that thing says,
yeah.
except other graffiti artists. So they've created this, this language that you can only understand
If you're part of the culture.
If you're part of that culture, and I think that has these small nuances that have grown from things like the Philly scene, but people have kind of taken those. Colin Kelso always likes to quote rappers. So it's the whole like guru thing where it's like we have certain formulas, but we update them with the times. So you see,
Colin's like a hip hop scholar, by the way.
Yeah,
He's just like
he's a hip hop scholar. He's a VG scholar.
he's a scholar out here. Yeah.
But so, those nuances have kind of grown, and now, we've created this language. And I know like there's other, old head bladers that get hated on because they look at skating now with blind eyes. They can't,
Right.
they if it's not a hammer, they can't appreciate it. I'm not one of those people whatsoever. Because to me, watching, some of the videos that the Kelsos put out, with people like, not only those guys, but with, with Patrick Ritter, with Alex, they've learned to then, accentuate those nuances even further.
Yep.
And, I get it. I watch these videos and, whether it's mushroom blading stuff, whether, it's basement stuff or whatever, I understand their language and completely appreciate what they're doing. So
yeah, it's cool to like not be the old guy that's like back in my day. It was like I remember that when I was like growing up, like listening to like whatever music I was listening to,
Right, of course.
and like my mom, who listened to pretty good music, she was still like I don't get this. Like, I was a little extreme. It was like Metallica and all that garbage, all that stuff. But so just the idea of being like that, like, oh, these chicks. So it's good to like try to like be older and make an effort to understand what's happening or the language that the younger kids are speaking. But I remember when like Colin first started trying to like not grab his tricks, be like kind of defiant. Obviously, like he was able to grab his tricks and do things within the rules, but then those like, it's kind of like that quote, like, learn the rules so you can break them properly. And just the that approach and how far that's been able to go, because there were like a lot of no-nos in skating that are, you see people doing more experimentation now that's like super fun. Like I love seeing like all this Womp stuff. Like we have Parker Richardson out in New York right now. Shout out Parker Richardson. And you know, all that like Womp stuff is like super cool because it makes skating fun.
Yeah.
And it like opens a whole nother door of what you can do. So it's cool to see like, you know, you coming from this place where you're like one of like the strongest enforcers of the rules to like being able to also like appreciate like the new nuanced levels of blading today and in these days.
Yeah.
Right, but so I don't, you know, I don't want to seem like I'm soft on the rules either. I think there's still standards that need to be upheld.
Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen overnight for the Kelsos, and those two will tell you very much so that, you know, we gave them a tough time when they were first coming up, because, you know, we were seeing videos of Colin and he did a citric acid, which I don't know if you know what a citric acid
Colin
is.
did that?
I know what a citric acid is.
It's
Come
where
on.
you're doing like a negative
Describe
acid.
it. Go ahead. Describe it.
You're doing a negative acid, but your acid foot is
back
going
around the other way.
the wrong way, and like there's just no way like that. No one's ever gonna make that trick look good.
There's just no way.
I want to challenge that.
But okay.
I feel like, well, I don't remember Colin's clip actually doing it, but I feel like, how could he do it and not make it look good?
No, it was because this was so long ago. This was
like
way
back in the day.
before
Okay.
apprehensions. This was them on on some like little ledge
Grommy style.
Abington. Yeah. But us giving them a hard time, as you know, in Philly, was never from a hurtful place.
Right.
You know, those guys took the hits from us. They learned the rules, and then they learned how to break them. And you know, to look at what they're doing now and what they've done over the years, I don't know anybody from Philly who would be able to say, you know, the way that the places that those guys have taken skating is not, you know, inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that even though that they have that new style of skating and they kind of go to like the way that skating is now, where it's not like just hammers and down rails and stuff like that, they still do kind of implement those rules, but every trick they do is perfect. Not just them, but everybody in Philly. You still skate like that too. When you skate, you make sure everything's perfect. You do things 100 times to get it right on video, you know, so that is still happening in Philly no matter what style of skating you're doing.